I'm Caleb Bond. Here's what's coming up on the Sunday Showdown. Anthony Albanese needs some policies for that election that's coming up, so he started borrowing them from the coalition. The Victorian government has sacked its police commissioner, but now they're scared he'll tell us just how bad the crime crisis is in Victoria. And the federal grant that used to buy air cons and pie warmers for footy clubs has been given a, shall we say, downgrade. I'll tell you how you can turn a pie warmer woke a little later. And to help get me through it all tonight, I'm joined by author and journalist Kel Richards, Sky News contributor Evelyn Ray, broadcaster Lucy Zelich and Sky contributor Joe Hildebrand. Well, poor old Albo's in a spot of bother. Two polls out today and they're both bad news for Labor. The latest YouGov poll, which went down to seat by seat, shows the coalition would be best placed to form government if an election were held today. They'd win 73 seats and Labor would win 66. So it's a hung parliament, but Dutton would only need 3 crossbenchers to get over the line. Albanese would need 10. It also found the coalition was still well out in front on the primary votes and 2 points ahead of Labor two-party preferred. Meanwhile, in the News Corp papers, there was a Redbridge poll that found the majority of voters believe Australia is generally heading in the wrong direction under the current government. 55% think Albanese doesn't deserve to be re-elected. The coalition would better handle the 3 biggest issues for voters, which were cost of living, housing and healthcare, and 70% of people say that they are experiencing a great deal of financial stress. None of that, I suppose, is terribly surprising, Kel, but it is amazing.
Where's the bad news?
It's amazing to think that Albanese, who of course was elected, we should note, on the lowest primary vote ever, and it was hardly a thumping majority, he got a majority of 2 seats. But if he were to lose government, it would be the first time since that has happened since the 1930s that a first-term government would be turfed. It's got to be pretty bad to go out like that.
It is pretty bad. Few quick points. The first is I actually think there's a sense in which Morrison was a one-term government. I know he was already Prime Minister in 2019 because he'd been thrown in by the party to get rid of Turnbull, who was a disaster. But he only won 1 election. He only served 1 term, 1 elected term, and then he was thrown out. So I think that 1931 figure can be misleading a bit. The electorate can change its mind the way it's changing its mind. 3 quick points. The first is Albanese is dead in the water. Either he loses the election and there's a majority for the coalition, or he ends up with a minority government, and having led them to that much disaster, in about 12 months, 6 months to 12 months, he will be quietly pushed aside by the Labor Party and someone else will take his place. So he's dead. I'm really pleased the polls are saying this because I've been saying it for some time. I'm glad they've caught up. Look, I know it's tired. I know we say it all the time that oppositions don't win elections, governments lose them. But your point about how bad it's looking is that point. And the issue when you look at the total government, the total opposition, is weakness. Albanese looks very weak. Dutton is looking very strong. And if all he needs to do is either he could get to 76 on his own in the course of the campaign, or persuade 3 independents, 3 crossbenchers anyway, to join him. So I think Dutton's looking very strong. And to lock it in, all he needs to do is to pick the sort of culture war, the sort of culture issue, which everyone will agree with. And look, if he picked don't let men pay in plastic. Yes, plastic straws. Or don't let men play in women's sport. That's a 90-10 issue. 90% of the population agree with that. We know that the woke Labor Party can't ever do that.
But the Teals don't necessarily agree with things like that. And that's the issue, Kel, isn't it? Because he's going to have to appeal to them and look to the crossbench. He's going to get 76 in his own.
Do you seriously
think he's going to be able to form a majority government?
I think that is an extremely difficult proposition because he needs 21 seats to do it. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. And if it was, as this poll is saying, 3 that he needs, you could say Katter, potentially Rebecca Sharkey. So he doesn't necessarily have to go into, selling himself out to the Teals.